So let's talk about this definition of the word collusion. Okay. So it's a secret or some type of illegal cooperation or conspiracy, especially in order to cheat or deceive others. So on last night's episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Monyetta accused Sonya, Marlo, and Sheree of colluding, okay, of colluding, I'm assuming to get Courtney to see that Drew is allegedly a liar and not to be trusted. Based on this definition here, do you think that Monyetta was correct? Because if they had gathered together, okay, I can sort of see why she would use the word collusion, but the technical definition is much deeper than what she actually, I think, really meant. All right. Um, Listen, we got to talk about the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 15, episode 12. Okay. Um, It's really called Intimacy, Lies, and Video Phones, okay? I changed the word intimacy to be politically correct, but you know what I'm talking about, all right? So, what I want to know is as we start this review, did you guys enjoy this episode? Like, I really want to know. I felt like as I was watching it, I was supposed to enjoy it, but I didn't get as much joy out of it as I thought that I would, okay? Or as much as I think we were supposed to. Was the episode longer than normal? I mean, was it an hour 15 minutes? Is that what it was? Something was going on last night. I don't know what it was, but I felt like it was extra long. And I felt like I was still on vacation for like I've been on vacation with these people for weeks and weeks. And I know it has been technically 3 weeks, but it just seemed like the vacation was on and it just kept going on. I felt like they all should have left when Candy left. I mean, no shade. I do feel like they all should have left when Candy left. I don't think that this was the healing trip that Sheree had been touting it as. And let's really talk about that because that kind of annoys me as well a little bit. I understand that there's supposed to be like this premises for the girls' trip, right? And I really respect the fact that they tried their hardest to make it seem like the trip is about something when it's really just an inaugural thing, right? It is a housewives thing. It's a girls trip. I would just say, listen, let's just call it our annual girls trip. This is where we're going. You know, we know they're going to do it. It is what it is because this premise that they're going to be there to do some healing when we as the audience know that it don't ever be no healing on these trips. I just feel like it's played out. At this point, let's just call it what it is. Let's just call it a girls trip saying it's about healing when we know that ultimately the premise of this show is rooted in drama. There's never usually going to be any healing involved. Okay. There's usually no healing ever. So, again, I respect the premise and I respect the commitment to that premise. But I just feel like we've been at this game long enough in the housewives world that we know it is what it is. It's just the trip to further the drama, right? But anyway, that's my own little gripe with the show as it stands right now. I'm gonna give this episode like an 8.5. I mean, I felt like there were little things that kind of moved the storyline forward, but not in the way that I'm as interested in as I am with what's going to happen with Drew and Ralph and how Ty fits into all of this. But I assume that a lot of this is the build up to how they get to where they're going to get to, right? So let's discuss. I mean, I thought about just really getting on here and talking about the main aspects of this show. You know, the Courtney and the Kenya of it all, the Drew versus the Marlo and the Ralph of it all. You know, the Sonya, playing the middleman, Sheree, doing this like oh my God, I'm so invested in our healing and y'all not. Oh my God, I'm going to go run off and cry like Drew. Drew already did that. We ain't believe it. I don't believe it now that you're doing it. Anyway, and then we got Moneta and the collusion of it all. I mean, I could really just go down the line with that because, to be quite honest with you, it was just a circular series of arguments from last night that I felt like, I don't know, that just doesn't really excite me as much anymore because I just feel like we've seen so much of it on these shows that an entire episode of cyclical arguments just does not do it for me. Okay, it just doesn't. I'm looking for something a little bit more. We've been at this game a long time. So I do feel like there is a space where we kind of get to where it's like, come on, like, give me something else, y'all. Like, and I know it seems like a lot of times we're picky with Real Housewives of Atlanta, but that is because there was so much greatness that lied in the past that I feel like we're still continuing to look for greatness now. And I feel like you can't blame the audience for that because we want when we do sit down in front of our scenes, we want to be amused. We're looking to be amused at this point. And I felt like last night I was just kind of tired. I was like, oh, are we still here? Are we still arguing? Okay, it's not going anywhere. Okay, let's move this thing forward. Anyway, so that's my gripe. And now we're going to get into the episode. All right. Portugal day 3. Candy packs up at 4:30 a.m. and she is out. She's still annoyed that Drew is allegedly lying about kissing Latoya. Um, Moneta and Kenya catch up the next day, and we learn that Kenya is much better after her fall. She thinks that Marlo put some type of roots on her. Candy was calling her last night heated about being called a liar by Drew, and then Kenya is curious as to why Drew is so upset about kissing Latoya. A lot of you guys have been in the comment section, and you're kind of like, I've seen a lot of people say, "Well, Candy, why is she out in Drew?" But I'm like, is it outing if the information was already out? Like, I mean, here's the thing: this had been talked about ad nauseum. I don't want to say ad nauseum, but it had been spoken about before several times on several different platforms, Real Housewives of Atlanta included. At the reunion, Latoya admitted it. Latoya said it on Candy Speak on it. Candy says she saw it. Kenya talked about it. Marlo's talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. So there's no, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like a situation where it's being outed. I think here, the reason why it's being brought up is because it was also sent to Latoya. Okay. And so also because they filmed the argument. And as to why Drew may be so upset about it, I do believe that Drew, once she listen, do I think that she kissed Latoya? I do. I do. I don't think that everybody's lying about that. But I think that Drew has to commit to whatever she said back then in order to be viewed in a certain light in terms of her maybe familiar relationships or even in terms of what's going on with her marriage and her divorce. So I feel like it has to look for Drew like she has never kissed a woman before and like she's never done anything untoward in her marriage in any way, shape, or form. Period. Um, Apparently, we learned that Marlo took video footage and sent it to Latoya, who then sent it to Drew. We will learn that Marlo was sending it to Latoya to show Latoya what type of person Drew is and what she was saying about Latoya. So then we learn that Latoya ends up contacting Candy and, wanting to clear her name. Now, I'm guessing Latoya is trying to say that she never kissed Drew. And so Kenya says Latoya is not smart. There's video evidence of her saying that she did it. And so that's what's really confusing about this situation. It'll be nice to see Latoya back on the screen next week to sort of put a bow on this situation and hopefully end all this speculation and just finally, either saying the truth or backing up Drew. Whatever she's going to do, I need to see it. Okay. Um, Moneta and Kenya end up calling Marlo a snake for sending the video to Latoya, who is technically not a part of the group, right? Because it does extend the conversation. However, one could argue that if they're talking about her, then does she need to know? Could she corroborate Drew's story or would she corroborate Candy's story? I mean, we here now, so I feel like let's go ahead and knock this play out of the park so we can find out and put a pin in this subject once and for all. Apparently, after Candy left, Marlo, Sheree, and Sonya told cousin Courtney to watch out for cousin Drew because cousin Drew is allegedly a liar. Now, with all these lying claims that's going around, I do feel like Drew is not making it any better for herself. Okay, the girls are calling you a liar and telling Courtney that you can't believe nothing that cousin Drew says, and then you know it ain't looking too good for Drew. I mean, on this show. Drew looks like she just to lie. You know what I'm saying? And so when you have painted this picture for yourself, and when it doesn't help that others are painting it for you, it just doesn't look too good for her. And I'm wondering if any of this will affect her divorce, because would it be easy to then utilize this footage if you're the divorce attorney and really paint a picture for a judge or for a jury or whomever, however divorces work, that, oh, she's a compulsive liar and here is the proof. Okay. Does all of this work in Ralph's favor in the long term? I think that's a good question, and I want to know the answer to that. And I want to know if that comes up at the reunion in any way, shape, or form. Sonya and Marlo recap the night before. Marlo thinks that Drew paid Latoya to say that they didn't kiss because, Latoya is a hustler. And I'm like, now, how much would she have to pay? In my mind, I'm like, now, let me ask you a question. How much would they have to pay you in order for you to lie or for you to say that you didn't do it? Let me put up the alleged badge because, Latoya could double down on it and say, I didn't kiss that girl and I didn't like it. Okay. So anyway, you know what? I've learned to measure myself as I'm doing these reviews. And at that moment right there, I started to realize, oh, I was about to start going off the rails. And so, and I know some of y'all like it when I go off the rails, but I'm trying to keep it in check because I ain't trying to lose my voice today. Whenever I get off the rails and I get to going, I lose my voice for the rest of the afternoon. Yeah, did you know? Did you know? Now you know. So anyway, I feel it happening. It's about to happen. The spirit about to take over. So anyway, Drew and Sheree catch up on Candy versus Drew from the night before. Drew is more upset that Marlo was recording and sent it to Latoya because that now throws Latoya into the mix. But my thought is, Drew, if Marlo sending the video to Latoya help you corroborate your story, why would you be mad at Marlo for that? It would seem to me as if you have Latoya, who is on the line, able to corroborate that y'all did not kiss, in spite of what Latoya has said in the past, in spite of what Candy has said, in spite of what Kenya has said, in spite of what Marlo has said. It would seem to me that she did you a favor, to be quite honest with you. Whether or not her intention was good, that's to be debated. But it would seem to me as if that would provide you with some sense of relief, because she is basically saying, oh, no, we never kissed. It was all a lie. It was a scheme. It was a ploy that Candy came with, allegedly, according to Drew, in order to get her in the mood for to play some type of role where she's gonna have to kiss another woman. Okay, so according to Drew, this was all Candy's ploy all along in order to warm her up to the idea of putting her lips into a soft embrace with another woman. Drew, first of all, the sound of that is a little disgusting. And what I mean by that is, what you're basically saying is that Candy has created a situation in order to get you to oh, this is a pain, this is how we're going to get you ready and in the mood to do what you need to do. Because by that logic, Candy would have been having to plot this whole movie thing way back when, and to have set this whole thing back in motion back in season 13 for a movie that, for whatever, for all intents and purposes, we don't know, that you had never been included in on in 2000 in 2020. Okay, so that don't make no sense to me, and I don't like the inference that you're trying to make there. And I felt like she's trying to be petty, and she's trying to, have a little moment right there. And I don't think she realized the severity, because I don't think Drew realized the things that she say. And I don't think she realized that it's all, some of this is gonna come back to haunt you, baby. Some of it's gonna come back to haunt you, babe. Like, and I just feel like, you gotta remember the things that you say when you are on these types of shows, especially if you ain't living in the truest version of yourself. Okay. And it would appear, based on what everybody else is saying, that you don't live in the truest, most authentic version of yourself, your life, who you are, and what you like. Okay. So anyway, now that I have said that, um, you know, Drew says, well, Kenya wasn't even in the room, so she didn't see it. But the flashback shows Kenya coming back downstairs 3 years ago. Um, Drew says that Candy is lying on her. Okay. And Sheree, in her confessional, she's like, Drew is a liar. But Drew, in my mind, well, here's the thing. Drew says she will be okay if she doesn't end up working on the movie, and she will be okay if she and Candy aren't friends. I felt like that was interesting to me, because I feel like it's one thing for you and Candy to have a disagreement, but I didn't see where this, I didn't see the argument as much as I felt like maybe we would have seen it had it been really filmed, because I get that Candy was frustrated, but it didn't seem like a friendship ending argumentation or whatever like that. Unless Drew is threatening, like, well, if you keep saying this, I'm not going to be friends with you. Unless that's the case. And if that's the case, then that's interesting for Drew, because she's losing more and more credibility and friends. Alliance. Well, I don't want to say alliances, but I just feel like it ain't looking too good for Drew. It ain't looking too good for Drew. And I feel like she's going to have a lot to answer for at the reunion. All right. So everybody gathers for a long bus ride to the sound bath. We learned that um, Moneta used to be a rapper. They got to transfer to a smaller band to make it up to the top of the mountain. And apparently things are tense between the two groups, especially between Courtney and Drew. And in my mind, I'm wondering, did the collusion conversation have that much of an effect on Courtney that now she is a little less, warmed up to Drew? She's treating Drew kind of coldly, and Drew recognizes it. I did enjoy the visuals and the way they tried to give us a picture of what each woman was thinking about during their experiences in what appeared to be a yurt while they were having their sound bath. So I thought that was pretty cool. Drew's issues with Ralph are highlighted during the sound bath. Kenya wants another baby. Marlo was thinking about Scottley and food. We didn't really get Moneta and Courtney's perspective. Drew reveals to the group that she was thinking about Ralph and the kids and how they were waiting for her. And Marlo in her confessional is like, Ralph ain't waiting for you. He in Vegas somewhere doing whatever he do with his girlfriend, which I thought was hilarious, because later on she will apologize for having spoken about Ralph. But anyway, Kenya's crying in gratitude over her daughter and wanting another child. And we learned that Marlo felt safe in the yurt, and she was able to sleep because she's not able to sleep at night because of the burglary. All right, it's time for lunch. Marlo is hacking away, and Sheree reveals that a practitioner told her that there was possibly a spell on her. So this is the second inference tonight of there being some either roots, spells, or something like that as related to what is going on in the ladies' lives and what's wrong with them. I don't know about the roots and things like that of that nature and all that, but what I do know is, I mean, listen, if you need some healing, Sheree, and if somebody did put the roots on you, or if there was a spell put on you, it's time to find pastor. Okay, maybe Prophet Lot. Have Drew's mama come over and have her go ahead and lay hands on you. Okay, and if she can lay hands on you and say a little prayer, along with Prophet Lot and maybe throw in Latoya, I feel like you might. I mean, this would be good. This would be good. Saving Sheree. I think that's where we should go next. So anyway, it's time for lunch. Like I said, Marlo is hacking. Moneta brings up how fun last night was, and Sheree says it was until it wasn't. And Candy was insinuating that there was some girl-on-girl action with Drew and Latoya, and Marlo secretly thinks that they're all undercover lesbians except Sonya. Anyway, she tells the group that she sent the video to Latoya saying that, I hate that the beat is lying on you. Now, Drew wonders why Marlo is so invested, and Marlo is concerned because I don't want there to be any liars in the group. And so Moneta explains that, when she was filming, she stopped filming when they said cameras down. And if they were all, I love that she said this, and I wrote this down. She says, but listen, if they're all being their authentic selves, then what is the big deal? That is the big deal with this show. And I think it's been echoed many times over when we watch Candy speak on it. The deal is, if I don't feel like we're always getting the ladies in their authentic selves. That is the problem, I feel like, with Real Housewives in general and reality TV at this point for some shows. The authenticity is missing. Okay, there's something that is going on there where I feel like the ladies are one way when the cameras go down, which is to be expected to a certain degree. But you can't be a whole different person when the cameras go down and then try to be a whole different person when the cameras go up. We, the audience, can tell when someone is not giving their authentic lives. And as a result, we typically become displeased with the show when we realize that we're not getting the ladies or the people involved, the cast, authentic lives. It has never failed. Look at any show that you have once enjoyed and think back on the time when you did enjoy it, right? It was usually because at that point in time, even if we felt like nothing was going on, we did feel like what we were watching felt a bit more authentic than it does in this day and age, right? Because now we know that people will come on with fake relationships and this, that, and the third and try to make things happen. And a lot of times it feels like people are so eager to make stuff happen when they have absolutely nothing going on in their actual lives. And we can tell when that's happening, right? And so then we end up frustrated. That's really the problem. But when she said it, I was like, Moneta just hit the nail on the head with what's wrong with this show in general. Now you can determine who you feel like is not giving their authentic lives. I can tell you for myself, I do feel like we don't get as much of, I think, Sheree's real life. I don't think we really get as much of Marlo's real life. I really don't. Um, I feel like to a certain degree, Sonya does what she needs to do to stay on the show. I like her in general, but I do feel like she does. I feel like in this episode, I actually, while I don't like what Courtney was saying to Kenya, I do feel like this was an episode where I saw a different side to Courtney. This side, this argument with Kenya felt more authentic than the argument with Candy did, right? Because we didn't know nothing about Courtney. We'd not gotten to see any of Courtney. And the next thing we know, we're introduced and she's in a full blown argument with a well known cast member. This argument with Kenya, I felt like she actually held her own. I felt like she stuck 10 toes down in what she was saying. And I appreciated that, even in what I felt like was a distasteful statement, I can respect that she stood 10 toes down in whatever she was saying. That's something that I feel like some of the other ladies could learn a little bit about, right? But anyway, I'm getting off and I don't want to go off on this tangent. Drew then gets to going and banging on the table. Don't you ever record me. Now, I did write down this. It's two things that she said that I kind of felt like, ooh, that stung. Now, when she said, why don't you get your case expunged? I felt like, okay, Drew, again, I have talked about this many times on the channel, relying on this whole idea that Marlo has a record. I feel like it's kind of a lazy read. However, given that it is part of her storyline this season and it was having cousin Courtney help her do it, I felt like, ooh, okay, Drew, I see you. But what she said next was, I mean, now that to me was the read right there. She said, focus on your dead follicles that you can't grow back. Focus on that, B. Now, while I did feel like it was right downright mean, now I felt like if you was gonna read somebody, that's the read you go with, Drew, right? The past expunge, we've been seeing it, it's been we've done it, okay? The dead follicles now that I feel like now that was your moment. Now that right there was the read. All right. Marlo tells her to focus on her husband, and then she says they're both in technology. So this is the first time this technology situation is coming up. Switching gears, Kenya wants to know if Courtney has anything that she wants to tell Drew about what was said about her the previous night. And Courtney's like, well, I can be accountable for what I said. And at that point, Manetta says, well, it was a collusion. And Sonya's like, no, bro, no collusion. No. So Courtney tells Kenya to stop because, girl, you wasn't there. Okay. And so at that point, Kenya tells her to shut up. And Courtney's like, and I'm not. And what you going to do about it? Let me tell you something. When you say that in a scene, there's not really a lot the person who you said it to can do, say or do, if they're not willing to, get about it. Okay. I mean, that statement right there is meant to shut you up because they know that you're not gonna do anything. But when it's said, I'm always kind of like, oh, now what is she gonna do? And Kenya's like, girl, I'm not gonna fight you or whatever like that. And Courtney tells her, girl, you need to learn from your karma. In your moment of butt busting because of your effed up energy, you were in the hospital and not around. And I was like, now, y'all know, I I felt like again, I don't like the inference that Kenya's fall was as a result of karma because she could have been hurt. But Courtney was not letting her foot off of Kenya's neck last night. And I was like, okay. I mean, I had a newfound respect for her because she did not. Mm, she kind of, I mean, she didn't really back down in the argument. She kind of backpedaled a little bit about what she said. But at the end of the day, I felt like she did come back around and stand 10 toes down in it. And she went hard at Kenya about it, which you don't see very often, to the point where Kenya is not really, doesn't have a lot to say back. Um, I felt like what Kenya is going to do in that situation is try to give her less or try not to give her much. But I feel like Courtney was somebody in that moment that you needed to give. Okay. You're gonna need to give you're gonna need to give Courtney your attention. Okay. Because she is coming for you in a way that I ain't seen a lot of people like really go for Kenya, right? So suddenly Sheree is upset and bothered and embarrassed and runs off into tears. And, Kenya is disgusted by what Courtney said. And Sonya also says it wasn't cool. So Sonya is kind of like in a more neutral position. Um, Drew goes to Courtney and warns her about Marlo, especially filming her. And Courtney says it's different. It's no different from Manetta, but I kind of feel like it is a little bit different because Marlo did send the video to Latoya. And I feel like that's something that we need to really remember in this situation. But again, Drew shouldn't be upset about that because it allowed for Latoya to corroborate her story that they didn't kiss. Anyway, Sonya also tells Marlo she was wrong for sending that to Latoya and escalating the situation. The ride back is awkward. I forgot where they were coming from. Drew, Kenya, Manetta, and Sheree get together for drinks. They recap the argument from earlier. Meanwhile, Courtney, Marlo, and Sonya recap the disastrous lunch. There's some discussion about Courtney, and Drew revealed that she warned Courtney, and Sonya is annoyed that Monyetta told her they were colluding. So Sheree wants to know what Monyetta told Kenya. Basically, she said it looked like they were talking about Drew to Courtney. Now, Sheree doesn't really deny this, but she says Courtney has never said anything bad about Drew. And I don't know if anybody peeped that, right? So Drew, we learned, doesn't want anything else to do with Marlo. And it's interesting to me. I don't know if Marlo's just the easier layup for Drew or what, but I don't know. I don't know if she's choosing to have this angst with Marlo or if it's more convenient. Let me know in the chat what y'all think. Um, it's dinner time. Martell and Sheree come up again, and I just am not invested, so there's nothing to talk about. Drew and Ralph, we learn, are celebrating 8 years together. He's no longer in counseling. And when Sonya goes to the bathroom, it's this interesting little moment where Kenya takes her mojito. And that was, I don't know. I don't know what our point was in seeing that. Monyetta reveals that Candy is still annoyed with Drew when they get to wherever they are. And, but she did talk to Latoya, and it comes up that Marlo wanted Latoya to see how Drew really feels about her. Now, Sonya pipes up that she didn't agree with Marlo sending the video to Latoya, but she feels like Monyetta was wrong for taking the info back to Kenya about the collusion. Monyetta's like, yes, I did. Oh, but, I apologize for using that word collusion. Okay, fair. I like that Monyetta stood on what she did, but that she apologized, I felt like, okay, that was a way forward. I did feel like Courtney was kind of being a little nice nasty with Monyetta in her apology, but it is what it is. Marlo also apologizes for breaking the trust in the group, but she does want to know who is lying. Drew tells her at that point, worry about you and your legal issues and whether or not you could pass a substance test. Now, when she said that, I was like, now what are you talking about, Drew? That was interesting to me because I was like, you want to elaborate? Okay. It was like that moment where things really went off the rails between Quad and Mariah at that reunion where Quad accused Mariah of doing the stuff. It was kind of like a moment where it was like, okay, Drew, where are we going with this? What do you know that we don't know? Okay. So I was like, this is interesting. Marlo's like, I gotta go figure out my fake name if my taxes are paid. And that's when Drew says, oh, did you file taxes? Marlo says, you can Google that. Your husband is in technology. It's public information. Yet again, we get another reference to technology and Ralph. And I still don't understand the horror of the mention. But for whatever reason, this is the thing that sets Drew off to let him know that Marlo was talking negatively about him. At that point, they continue to argue. Marlo says that karma's a bee. That's why bad things are happening to certain people, which I think was a direct reference to Kenya, which also lets me know that I think that Courtney probably also had the karma conversation with Marlo behind the scenes. At that point, Monyetta wants to know why this karma thing keeps coming up and that someone else said that Kenya's fall was karma. So it comes out that Courtney made the reference. I couldn't tell if she was trying to backpedal in this moment or not, but Kenya says, well, if someone wants to make fun of me for falling, it shows that they are heartless and horrific. And then Kenya and Courtney go back and forth about karma and who's heartless. And I will say in this moment, this was the moment that I felt like Kenya wasn't really trying to give Courtney as much. And I felt like Courtney was trying to give Kenya the most. And I feel like it was one of those moments where I felt like, now, Kenya, you need to rev up your engine. Okay. This ain't one of those moments where you can downplay what somebody's saying to you because she is coming for you. Okay. She is really coming for you. And you need to put on the Kenya Moore hat at that moment and really get with her at that. I just felt like that for me. But y'all let me know how y'all felt. The next day, and in my notes, I wrote, "Oh my God, are we still on this trip?" It's winery day, and Kenya's determined that they're going to be on their best behavior for Sheree, so that Sheree doesn't run off crying again like Drew. Anyway, they get to the winery. Marlo reveals that she just received a text from Ralph, and he wants her to keep his name out of her mouth. Now, we talked about this text message before in a previous video when we had talked about what was going to happen in the episode because they had put out a clip and a preview. So you guys can see the message here. The message that Ralph sent to her, and let me know whether you think he was right for sending her that message or not. And I also wonder what it is that Drew told Ralph that Marlo said about him. Regardless, while Marlo and Sheree don't believe that somebody's husband should be texting her, she does apologize to Drew versus texting Ralph back, which I do think is the right thing to do. Kenya wants to shut this conversation down altogether, while Sheree in her confessional does wonder, well, if Ralph does work in the tech field, what is so wrong with Marlo saying it? And in my mind, I think we asked this question the other day, does Ralph not want people to know what he does for a living? Anyway, while they're on the wine, things seem to be fine. There's like a little show. Drew thinks that the people there are pilgrims. And production has to tell her, girl, there are no pilgrims anymore. And Sonia predicts that Drew still needs to heal from this trip with Courtney, with Marlo, and with Candy after she's had blow-ups with each of them. Well, not really blow-ups, but there is something brewing between Courtney and Drew. And I do think that Sonia, Marlo, and Sheree had a hand in maybe telling her some things about Drew, but I guess the question is, were they right to tell her those things? Because there are moments where Drew does come across like she's not the most truthful. Anyway, Moneta teaches the group the Cup It Challenge, and nothing was healed. Next week, we get Cynthia and LaToya returning, and part of me just feels like this whole season is beginning to feel like one giant flashback.
So, Desiree Davenport, what are you hoping to accomplish with this show?
Honestly, I've lost everything in the most horrible way possible. And listen, I want it all back. I'm willing to build it piece by piece, and I mean brick by brick.
Oh, honey, she is done. I bet you a Burke and she doesn't last all season with us. Just watch.
I'm Misha Hill, and I'd like to consider myself the matriarch of this dynamic group of ladies. I mean, someone has to keep them under control.
I'm Davita Delaney.
I mean, I think I could teach these ladies a thing or two about how to get and keep a good man.
They said she was a gold digger. Gee, you did for me. I'm just really looking forward to being surrounded by other empowering bosses.
Yes, I know exactly what she's doing. And if she keep playing in my face, I'm gonna have to let her off her dirty little secrets just like she did to me. And I'm not playing.
Let's get this straight. If I brought you into this circle, I just as easily can take you out. She ain't running nothing over here, okay? She needs to be worried about running that household and worried about why that husband of hers is never at home.
Oh, hell.
Ooh, child, this is about to be a mess.
Oh my God, I hate mess. What in the world did I get myself into?